Welcome, foolish mortals. I'm your host, 1000 Ghost, and let's get right into The Mandalorian episode or chapter 16, The Rescue. This is the season finale of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Again, kind of a short episode, but it packs a ton in. And make sure you stay through the credits because it has an end scene that can't be missed. So, of course, this will have spoilers for parts of season 2 and all of this episode, and some thoughts about what's coming. But quick recap and then some thoughts. This episode pretty much moved exactly as I thought it would. There was only one small thing at the end that I didn't think they'd do that they did. So the episode starts with a Lambda-class shuttle being chased by Slave 1. It has Dr. Pershing in it. He is the clone doctor from the first season. And I think they're being in this season. Maybe he wasn't in this season. Anyway, they're being chased by Slave 1, and they are chased down and boarded. And the Mandalorian and bo-katan and Cara Dune capture Dr. Pershing and use him to get some information on the setup of Moff Gideon's ship. He tells them that the ship is not as defenseless as they think it is, that there are troopers on it, maybe as not as many as there should be, but there are, and there's also a battalion of death troopers. The death troopers were shown a couple episodes ago, and of course in the episode or so before this, when they captured the child. The Dr. Pershing mentions that these are the third version of the Dark Troopers, which will be interesting to see which of the old EU Dark Troopers are brought in. If they're the ones from a couple of the different video games, that'd be kind of cool. But the best thing about these, he says, is that there are no humans or no beings, anything organic inside them. So they are truly machines. Which, come to find out, is not the best thing to do, as usual, for the Empire. You would think they'd learned their lesson from the Separatist movement. But they come up with a plan to break into the ship, and they're going to split off into two groups. The Mandalorian is going to go rescue the child, while everybody else gets to Moff Gideon on the bridge, and bo-katan can get the Darksaber, and all will be well, and she's going to use the shuttle to get on and use the ship itself to fight to get Mandalore back. Now, the little bits here and there that are different is that before this, bo-katan and Casca Reeves, who's the other Mandalorian, have a run-in with Boba Fett. She recognizes him as a clone and says he shouldn't have that armor. Casca tries to fight him, and they kind of fight each other to a draw. But they mention that why fight for Mandalore when basically the Empire turned it to glass. So I'm hoping next season we get to see Mandalore now and see where it is and what's left of it and what's left of its people. Or are they truly scattered? So they get on the ship, and it goes, the typical Mandalorian episode of it's mostly a firefight, where absolutely none of the good guys get hit, and all the bad guys are killed with single shots. Although it's 100% girl power, which is kind of awesome once again to see some strong female characters that don't have to be Mary Sue's in the Star Wars universe that can hold their own because they were trained to hold their own. Finnick and Cara and Casca and bo-katan all infiltrate all the way up to the bridge with almost no difficulty. There they find that Moff Gideon is gone. We switch back down, and we see the Mandalorian coming to where the Dark Troopers are held. And it seems to be his plan is going to blast them out into space. However, he hasn't gotten there fast enough, and they are already being activated. One of them gets through into the hallway, and they have a nice little fight. Reminded me a lot of how they move and stuff. Reminded me of droids, super battle droids from the prequels. They're very stiff. They don't have very good movement when they're marching. They all march in a line. Now, when they're fighting, they're doing a very good job, and they hold their own against the Mandalorian pretty well. Of course, he's got his pure Vesca staff and ends up killing, or I guess not killing, dismembering the one dark trooper that got through, and then he blows the rest out into space. He comes across the place where the child, Grogu, is being held, and Moff Gideon is standing there with the dark saber lit, and they have a small conversation about how he's got everything he needs from the child. He got his blood, and how very special he is, and that bo-katan doesn't want anything to do to help him or the child. She just wants the dark saber, which we all know. Anybody who's watched the Clone Wars knows that that's what she's here for. Helping the child of the Mandalorian is just a side quest for her in her final quest. So the Mandalorian agrees that he can take the child, and Moff Gideon can keep the darksaber. Then, of course, Gideon attacks him instantly with the darksaber, which does no damage whatsoever to his armor or to his staff. And eventually, the Mandalorian, of course, wins the battle, gets the child, and takes Moff Gideon to the bridge. Now, apparently, the Republic has a big bounty out on Moff Gideon. He's got plenty of information they need, so they want him alive. Bo-Katan does not want him alive because she needs the darksaber, which has kind of fallen into the plan of Moff Gideon. Because when the Mandalorian tries to give her the darksaber, she can't take it. Because the lore, the story, is more important than the final end game. She says that she can't actually take it from him without fighting him and defeating him in combat. And then she can take it, and then she can rule Mandalore. Mandalorian doesn't want to have anything to do with this. She refuses. It looks like they're going to have a standoff, which is kind of how I thought this coming. I really thought they'd have a fight. She'd defeat the Mandalorian in some backward, stupid way, get the darksaber, and then attack and kill all of the dark troopers. Well, it didn't quite work out that way. Alarm klaxons go off, and a lone X-Wing flies into the hangar bay. And this is where it gets good, boys and girls. Luke Skywalker appears and just basically makes short work of every dark trooper there, which is kind of sad because in the end they did just go down like super battle droids. They just wussed out. They didn't hit anything. They barely fought back. They had no chance in fighting Luke Skywalker, of course, much like all their predecessors against the Jedi in the Clone Wars. Now, the CG on Mark is pretty good. It's obviously another actor, but they did a really good job CGing his face on. This would have been the opportunity to bring Sebastian Stan in, people who want to play Luke in a series set after Return of the Jedi, because he does bear striking resemblance to him. But it's actually an actor using Mark Hamill's face and Mark Hamill's voice. Luke Skywalker comes up and says that he's here for the child, and the child is to come with him to be trained. Of course, the Mandalorian is conflicted because this is the end of his quest, but it's also the end of him and the child. Grogu is not absolutely sure what's going on because he's never seen Luke Skywalker before. He doesn't know anything about her. And here's where I have a small issue with the episode. Why doesn't anybody know who Luke Skywalker is? You know, Bo-Katan fought with the Jedi. You would think she'd know one of the biggest members of the rebellion. She's still friends with Ahsoka, who must still be part of the rebellion in some way. Cara Dune, she's a Republic shooter who was on Endor. So we know she was there. She should know who won that battle. It was Luke Skywalker, Jedi Knight. So it's weird that none of them know who he is. But that's the reveal for you. And then a moment later, everybody's favorite droid, R2D2, comes rolling out and has a small conversation with Grogu. And then the Mandalorian tells him it's okay to go. And the Mandalorian takes his helmet off. The Mandalorian has had a shave and a haircut since our last episode, which is hilarious. A lot of people are pointing out that why does he have a mustache if he never takes his helmet off? So, of course, this was all filmed months ago, so they couldn't have taken any of that criticism to heart. And then the Luke and R2 and the child get into a turbo lift and go. And that's the end of season 2. We have no conclusion to the storyline with bo-katan and the dark saber. Moff Gideon is still sitting right there. It's weird how this just kind of it stops on a weird kind of cliffhanger. I'm not sure how the fandom's going to take this, especially everybody who's so fond of Grogu. Because does this mean Grogu's not even going to be in season 3? How much is this CG Mark Hamill going to show up? And if Mark's there, what about Carrie? And what about Harrison? Will Chewbacca show up? I mean, it's a weird time. This is 5 years after the end of Return of the Jedi, so I would assume that Leia and Han are probably on Coruscant or wherever the New Republic is setting up at the moment, and Luke is kind of just pittering around. Now, Grogu could actually be the beginning of his temple. We're not actually sure when he starts his Jedi Academy. As far as I know, I am a few EU books behind. So I'm not sure exactly when this started, and this is about 20 years before Episode 7. So there's still plenty of time for a lot of stuff to happen. But one of the coolest things is after the end credits, we see Jabba's palace on Tatooine. And sitting on a throne is Bib Fortuna, who has had way too much tuna. This guy has put on a ton of weight, which is hilarious because actually if you see it and you know some of the development of Jabba the Hutt, there is a version of Jabba that is kind of this, I don't know, pig-like thing with 4 arms, I think he was, sitting on a throne. The throne from this looks exactly like these old Ralph McQuarrie drawings from Return of the Jedi before he was turned into a slug from from episode 4. Sorry, lost my train there. So he was just a big fat guy. So Bib Fortuna is sitting there. He was not on the sail barge when it blew up. We knew this from old EU, but it's interesting to find this in new EU. So Finnick comes down and shoots several weakways around him, his bodyguards, and then Boba Fett comes in, and they have a small conversation. He's very surprised to see him. He heard many things about him, and then Boba shoots him and goes and pushes him out of the chair and sits in the chair, and it cuts to a scene that says, "The Book of Boba Fett, coming 2021." So we have at least 2 new series plus possibly an animated series, and then season 3 of The Mandalorian coming out next year. Supposedly, the Cassian Andor is supposed to come out towards September. They didn't say when this is going to come out. And then Mandalorian season 3 is supposed to come out in end of November, beginning of December of next year. So much like the Marvel dump we're going to get a ton of new Star Wars, and it looks like Disney Plus is the place to be. I really enjoyed this episode. I really enjoyed most of season 2. I really think it could have been cut up and only had 6 episodes. But as everybody's pointed out, they'd rather have shorter episodes than a whole bunch of filler material, which is very true. There were actually a couple episodes that felt like filler, but in the end, they kind of made their way into the story. I don't know how everybody's going to deal with no Grogu, especially someplace who needs money, say Disney, who needs a merchandising arm for this show. Now, The Mandalorian is selling out everywhere you see him. So is almost everything connected with the show. But we'll see how that translates into new sales next season if there is no Grogu. Um, that was the surprise I didn't think was happening. I actually thought Ahsoka was going to come in at the end, but then when the X-Wing came, I was like, well, that's Luke. And really, Luke was the only Jedi who was going to come anyway, but I thought they were going to save that for something in season 3. I didn't think they were going to pull that out at the end of season 2. So Luke makes an appearance at the end of season 2, The Mandalorian, kind of like he did at the end of episode 7, where he just pops in. This time he's more the Luke of old, where he just crushes things in his path and seems like he's still together. I'm very glad that Mark is back doing the voice. Um, there wasn't any way he could be Luke. He's not thin enough. This is definitely the Luke from right after Return of the Jedi. He's still in the same clothes, which, okay, come on. Everybody, all the Jedi wear the same outfit all the time. Do they buy these things in bulk? Do they get them at Ross? Where do they get these things where they get like 10 of these things and they never change their clothes? But no, neither does the Mandalorian change his armor. So the Star Wars universe must smell rather like medieval England, where nobody ever changed their clothes. So, again, great episode, wonderful effects. The Dark Troopers were a waste, but there's some new figures to buy. Maybe they'll come and actually do something. I don't understand why, after all those battle droids and everything, they haven't given droids more personality. We saw with IG-11 and IG-88 and the other assassin droids that droids have personalities, even if they're assholes. In the comics, you have, was it 000 and the black R2 and the black 3PO, who are Vader's very psychotic droids that hung out with Captain Alpha, or I don't remember her name. I need to catch up on those comics too. Anyway, thanks for watching, everybody. If you like, please subscribe, pass on to everybody else. But again, this was a great season. I think it can only get better. Filoni and Favreau are definitely who should take over Star Wars, period. I don't know what everybody else is going on, but they should have some sort of guiding hand. And it's clear with these new series and stuff that their hand is in it. And if their hand's in it, Filoni has shown us that he plans ahead. So you're going to see Marshals of the New Republic and Mandalorian and the Book of Boba Fett and Ahsoka all overlap. So on that, I'll bid you all goodbye and catch you later. Thanks.